Hey, what's going on? I'm Dr. Chad with Energy Physio, and I'm glad you found your way here. I just want to take a second to share with you some things that we've uncovered in the last 3 or 4 years that have been really impactful for the clients we're working with. And one, it's a mess out there in healthcare. All of our clients have already tried and failed physical therapy and chiropractics and meds and injections and sometimes even surgeries. And I know that's super frustrating. That was me. Rewind a little bit into the past, and I was stuck in this cycle of pain. Nobody could figure it out, and I ended up having to figure this thing out on my own. And so I've been where you are. I know you're super frustrated, and after solving these problems for myself, I was super lucky, being a physical therapist to be able to start transferring these things onto my clients and then getting to practice with lots and lots of people and just refine and get better and get faster at helping people get results, even if they had already, like me, tried and failed a lot of other things. So if you're sitting around thinking, man, I've tried everything and nothing works, there's still hope for you because we do it every day. And so what I want you to know is that when I started working with clients, I zoomed out. And instead of really focusing in on pain, I was zooming out and looking at the whole picture. I started assessing every joint: ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, spine, ribs, elbows, wrists, necks. I was checking everything every time, no matter where the pain point was. And what became interesting was a couple of things. One, we noticed that regardless of where the pain was, everybody had very similar patterns of restriction elsewhere in their body. So somebody had shoulder pain, they still had stiff and asymmetric ankles and stiff and asymmetric hips. And of course, their shoulders were stiff and asymmetric. And even if that was back pain or foot pain, these same patterns of restrictions just started showing up over and over and over again. And it also, when we started looking at how people move, how do people walk? How do people squat down? How do people bend over and pick stuff up? How do people press stuff over their head? We started noticing that these patterns of restrictions always create the same patterns of movement. And so if we could change how people move by changing the way all of their joints are functioning, we could get them pain-free very quickly. But the more interesting thing that we found was that the common thread through everybody that had pain that we saw was that the pelvis was asymmetric. And this was very, very interesting because typically, the world is divided on does the pelvis move or does it not. And so, but what we were noticing was what's called a leg length discrepancy. So if you've heard, your hips are uneven, you have a leg length discrepancy, you have sacroiliac joint dysfunction. These are all terms that describe an asymmetry in the two halves of the pelvis. And so 100% of people that came to see me that had pain had an asymmetry in their pelvis. And I would not have found that without first committing to checking every joint, because the way you see the pelvis asymmetry is actually at the ankles. It makes one leg look longer than the other. And so once I started noticing, okay, well, the common thread here is an asymmetric pelvis, the next thing that happened was super interesting. And that was, I would check all the joints and we just kind of jot down how much motion did they have and how asymmetric were they. And then we would correct the pelvis asymmetry first. And then I would go back and check the joints again. And what actually happened was every joint that looked stiff or asymmetric to some degree actually had change in it. So just by starting with the pelvis, we were able to pick up new mobility and symmetry in the ankles, the hips, the shoulders, cervical rotation for people with stiff necks. And at first we thought it was a fluke. And so I just committed to checking every single time on every person that came through the door. Okay, is this real? Can we start here and create a new baseline in all the other joints? And what that allowed us to do is actually create a really accurate blueprint for what is the root cause of pain and what do we need to focus on specifically that is not the pain itself that is going to lead to better quality of movement. Because we already knew if we can have people move like this instead of this, they feel better. Now it was just a matter of, well, how do we start unraveling all the things that make their movement look like that so that we can get them to better movement more quickly and pain relief more quickly as well. And so we have a saying that we like to use, which is it's impossible to correctly treat an incorrect diagnosis, and it's impossible to completely treat an incomplete diagnosis. And what we've learned over the past 5 or 6 years is that most diagnoses are so focused in on this one small spot that they're always incorrect. Because this one local location, this thing that hurts, or this thing that shows up on your anatomy through an MRI is not the cause of your pain. And we need to create this distinction very rapidly for you, because if your MRI shows a disc herniation, that might be the source of pain, although it rarely is, but it is not the cause. We need to better understand what created that herniation in the first place. Because if we can help you stop moving in ways that create the disc herniation, we can now create an environment in your body to be able to heal, resorb the disc, and then the disc is no longer a problem. And now we also don't run the risk of herniating other segments up the spine or down the spine. And so just by saying, hey, you have pain because you have a disc herniation is a gross misrepresentation of what's going on in your entire body that is creating the herniation in the first place. So we don't want to focus in so narrowly that we actually miss the root cause of pain, because root cause of pain has nothing to do with what is showing up on your anatomy through an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. Those images are just reflections of how your body, as it moves as a whole, is adding stress into that area. And the same thing goes for meniscus tears, patellar tendonitis, small rotator cuff tears, and the list goes on and on. Plantar fasciitis, sciatica. All of these things are just reflections in your body of your body not moving well and adding stress to those areas in a way that is showing up as pain. So when we're communicating to the world and our clients, we have this thing that we use called the Keystone Reset. It's very, very interesting, but it's our way of addressing pelvis first, so we can really understand how is your body actually moving and what are the things that we should be working on. Because if we can make small changes in your ankles and your hips and your knees and your shoulders, if they need them, it has a drastic impact on pain, whether that be your foot or your hip or your back or your shoulder or your neck. What we have found is that making small changes in areas that aren't working well and don't have pain have a very drastic impact on the area that does have pain. And we can get that functioning well, allow the body to heal so that we can actually move forward with a greater degree of progress, less setbacks, and really a more permanent result. And the way we do that is by first zooming out, checking everything so that when we zoom in, we're zooming in on the things that actually need some help. And we're always correlating this to, okay, well, when we add help to this thing, it decreases pain. And when we add help to this thing, it decreases pain again. And when we start incorporating these changes in your joints over into your movement, like how you move throughout your day and how you take care of your body, pain goes to zero. And that's exactly where you want to be. I know that's true because that was me about a decade ago. And so if you're on the other side of the screen and you're just wondering, man, how do I know if this is for me or not? If you've already tried a bunch of stuff, you don't have anything to lose. It's just a conversation where we can walk through, man, how do we do this? What do we need to know to make sure this is the right fit for you? And we can help you decide if that's something you'd like to do. If that's the case, click the button below, schedule an assessment with one of our docs, and we can walk you through exactly what it would look like to check each joint, get your Keystone Reset, reset your body back to baseline so we know exactly what we should be working on. And the truth is, we're always working on things that are away from the pain side. We want to see how much of your pain can we change without directly focusing on it. Because if we can change your pain tremendously without focusing on it, we know it's going to be super easy to get you all the way there if we do have to come right into that area and create some change. So if that sounds interesting to you, I hope it does. We'd love to walk you through our really unique process in the Keystone Reset to show you relief is possible. You can achieve relief, and we can set you up with all the skills and tools that you need to be able to make that permanent so that you can be pain-free for the rest of your life. See you later.